I want to speak today on a very simple topic, and we'll tie it into Isaiah. I know we're reading our Isaiah, folks. It's crazy, isn't it? Some of those prophecies of destruction is like, what in the world? This is terrible. But then there's also some incredible promises in Isaiah. And I want to live on that promise side, right? I want to stay out of that destructive side, the judgment side. And so today, I want to talk about discovery. Discovery. And so, discovery is the process. It's a process. To discover means to find something. Discovery is the process of finding something. So I want to talk about discovery today. And I'm going to mostly tell stories. And I tell you that each of these stories are absolutely 100% true. They did not come out of some fiction book that I read. They didn't come from these are real life stories. You know, Jesus taught in parables, right? Told a story, made a point. So I'm going to tell some stories today, and then we'll make a point about the process of finding. Some 15 miles south of here, there's a beautiful ranch nestled in the hills of Spicewood. It's our family place. Been in our family for over 150 years. And as a child growing up, my greatest desire was to get to the ranch, because there I could find a swimming hole, look for arrowheads, discover perfectly formed snail fossils. I could identify raccoon tracks and possum, skunk, deer, ringtail, and the occasional bobcat by finding these tracks. It was all about adventure and discovery. And all the while, my brothers and granddad played multitudes of pranks on each other. Oh, some of them were epic. I'll tell you a couple. And we played these pranks as we worked cows, rode horses, picked wild grapes, made our own lime. He had us go out and collect big old piles of limestone rocks, and then we put mounds of oak wood and burned it for 3 days, and took barrels of water and threw it on there, and those rocks shattered and turned into dust, and we made our own lime. And then we would go down to the creek and get the sand out, and we made our own cement. And that's what we put up on the ranch house to lay the stone with. It was an unending adventure and discovery. We learned how to cure bacon, how to plant a garden. I hated working in the garden. I still do, but I have sensitive red skin, and it made me break out in bumps, but I love the okra, right? But Granddad planted a healthy hunger for discovery, and his went something like this: what can we do with what we have? That was all about Granddad. He made his own homemade water drilling rig out of some rig out of a junkyard, and we drilled a well with it. And we still have water coming out of that well today, some 50 years later. Crazy what you can discover if you'll use what you have. I can't go on without telling you a few things about Granddad's personality and pranks and tricks and stuff. Granddad liked to start early, and he'd say, "Boys, we're getting up at daylight in the morning, so get ready. Don't stay up too late." Of course, we'd always stay up late. We were at the ranch. We wanted to get everything we could. It'd be before daylight, and Granddad would come in and, "Boys, time to get up." And if you were lucky, you got up. And if you weren't lucky, he would go into the bathroom, take a washcloth, put it in that cold well water. But that wasn't good enough. Then he'd put it in the freezer and wait until it got just before it was frozen. Come back into your room and, oh yeah, wake up time. So we would leap out of bed and, we're wide awake. And that was just Granddad, always looking for some way to motivate us to go do something with what we had, go discover our talents for the day. And so years later, Granddad came by the house to pick us up to go up. I was about 14 at the time. Now, this is a true story. As parents, you may have to edit the tape here, but this is what happened. Our parents decided we couldn't go to the ranch. So Granddad was a widower at the time. He slumped his shoulders, went and got in his old truck, and he drove terribly slow. And he took off, putting off down the road. And we begged and promised to do double chores. We would do anything if our parents would just let us go to the ranch. And for some reason, they let us go. At 14 years old, I ran out to the car, and it was an old Ford station wagon with a big old 390 engine in it and a 4-barrel carburetor. It would go. And I was 14. My brother Kelly was 12, and Mike was about 9 or 10. And man, we shot off trying to catch Granddad. Sure enough, we caught him about halfway to the ranch, about 2.5, 3 miles around the corner. Going around the Lorena Burton's pond, there's a sharp corner, and we caught him. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I can get Granddad right here. I said, Kelly, come over and drive. He said, I can't drive. I said, get over here and drive. I was the oldest. I was the boss. He had to do what I said. So he crawled over there. It's kind of like Dukes of Hazzard, only this was real. There were no stunt clothes. So Kelly got over there, and he got behind the wheel and started driving. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to crawl out on the hood. I'm going to get in his truck, and I'm going to scare him to death. He's like, you can't do that. I said, watch me. Now I'm going to wave you on, and you make sure you do what I say, because this is dangerous. If I slip, it's going to be bad. Man, I crawled out on the hood of that car. I let go of the top, and I scooched out to the end. I grabbed the emblem of the hood, and then I put my feet down on the bumper, and I waved Kelly on, like, come on. And he got right up there, and I put my hands out, and I grabbed the back of that tailgate. I waved him off, swung in the back of the truck. It's like, oh, this is good. I was going to put my head in the passenger window and yell at him. I put my head in the passenger window. He didn't even see me. He was talking to himself. He was lonely. He was in his own world. He was like, I told him, shh, 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 shh. I said, I can remember it vividly. And I was like, wow, if I do that, he's going to wreck and hurt us both bad. I didn't consider what I just did. So I got a brighter idea. I crawled in the front of the truck with him. He still didn't see me. He's in his own world. He's trying to teach himself Spanish. He'd say something in English and repeat it in Spanish. We had a bunch of guys from Mexico that worked on our ranch with us, and that was his way of learning Spanish. So I was like, man, I'm sitting here now, what do I do? So I reached over and I just touched him on the shoulder. And when I did, he let out a gasp. He turned over and he looked at me, his face drained of color, and he said, what the douse, boy? Where did you come from? I was like, oh, we just snuck up on your Granddad. We thought it'd be funny. He said, that ain't funny, Sonny. You oughtn't to have done that. You could have got hurt. All was forgiven because Granddad loved us. And it's all about discovery. Granddad never got after me because he loved me. Folks, if you can just love somebody, you will discover a part of life that you've never been exposed to before. If you will unconditionally give of yourself without asking for anything in return, the rewards are exponentially beyond anything you can imagine, because His Word said it. He's prepared things for us that are beyond anything we can think or we can imagine. And there's nothing greater than the power of love to help you discover who you are and what you can do. So that was part of my, at an early age, Granddad planted a healthy hunger for discovery, what we can do with what we have. And then there was my mom. She was a totally different cat. Mom, in a lot of folks' eyes, was so spiritually minded that she was no earthly good. I mean, seriously, that's how people thought about Mom until they got in trouble. Then they called Mom quick. Barbara, would you pray? Yeah. Mom was an only child. And I don't know that means you're spoiled, but my mom was spoiled. Very opinionated. She had her own horse when she was a little kid, grew up on a ranch. You know, they didn't have a lot of money, but Mom got her way, if you know what I mean. She wasn't perfect by any means, but once she started having children, and there was 11 of us, she started praying. Parents, can you relate? Oh, man. One of my earliest memories of Mom was this. Boys, it's time to pray. And at least once a day, we'd all pray together at the same time. But mostly, we listened to Mom pray. As she called out to God for different ones, her children and those around her, asked for strength, Mom prayed intensely, very out loud, with a lot of tears. And if you weren't used to that kind of praying, you'd get uncomfortable being around that kind of praying sometimes. But for us, that's just how it was. We thought everybody prayed that way. We didn't know some people prayed structured prayers. We thought it was all just, oh, God, help me. That was Mom. But she did that every single day. And then, before we went to bed at night, without fail, we'd all get in bed and we slept in this big old sleeping room. So there's a whole pile of kids. By the time the youngest ones got around, Randy and some of the older ones had already moved out, but a lot of times there was 8 kids at home, and that was a pile. And she'd get us all in the sleeping room, and she'd start talking, and she'd say, okay, tonight, what do you want to hear about? And it didn't matter. You could say, I want to hear about Daniel and the lion's den. Boy, she'd go right into detail and make this intriguing story about God shutting the mouth of the lion. Or we'd say David and Goliath, and she'd tell about the little round stones and how they bubbled in the brook. And it just made you be in the middle of that story. Mom was a great storyteller. Some of us picked up some of that. My son Jeff, he's a crazy storyteller too. But every day we got that prayer. And every day we got that story. It was easy to do with Mom because her stories were so interesting and her prayers were so earnest and heartfelt. Whew. I still feel the result of my mother's prayers. And Rick was telling us about, I won't share his promises, but they're pretty good. I got them. It only took me one day to figure out this guy's, he's on the right track. He's hungry for the right thing, and God rewards those that seek him. He is the rewarder of those that seek him diligently. But when I got older and had children of my own, I lived out on the ranch about a half a mile from Mom. And we lived in that proximity for about 20 years before she went on. And during that time, I came to realize that Mom still searched for, looked for God consistently every day. And I asked her once if she read the Bible through every year, and she said, "Oh, yeah." I was like, well, and the way she said it, I was like, how many times a year do you read it, Mom? Said, "Oh, I don't know. I like to read a book a day." How long does that take? Well, sometimes it's a short book and sometimes it's a long book. That's about 5 times a year if you read 66. That's a lot of reading. And not only that, but her biggest joy in life was if one of her kids would come by, or anybody really, it would be this: "Do you have time to pray?" And I thought, "Mom, why do you always just want to pray all the time? That's all you want to do is read your Bible and pray and talk about God." When I got kids of my own and now grandkids, we just had one of our grandkids live with us for 8 months, and it was like, "Hey, Caleb, in the morning we're going to pray, okay?" "Yeah, before you go to work, we're praying." And it wasn't that I wanted to torture Caleb. I wanted him to hear me cry out to God. "Oh, God, make me over again today, God. Make me new. Forgive me of my sins, God. Help those guys that I'm working with. I pray you bless my boss today." That kind of stuff. Because Mom taught me to pray. Mom taught me to study the Bible. It was her constant searching that changed my life. Because the scripture came true that if you seek, you will find. Draw near to me, God says, and I'll draw near to you. You see, these little books are Mom's prayer journals. Whew. Wow. Inside them are names and dates and promises about her kids. About her, "Brandy, you're in this book. Kip, you're in this book. Randy is in this book." These books were mainly from 2008. This Bible that I received when she passed, completely worn out, pages torn out, underlines, parentheses, all kinds of little notes on the side. My name's in here beside an amazing promise from God. You see, in the 20 years that I was living near Mom, if you averaged out her 3 hours a day of seeking God times 7 days a week, that's 21 hours a week times 52 weeks is 1,092 hours. A year times 20 years is 21,840 hours that Mom spent seeking or looking for, trying to discover. It's the process of finding is seeking. And then if you take that over the years that she lived for God, it's easy to say that in her lifetime, Mom spent well over 50,000 hours of her life searching for God in His Word, searching for God and His answers through her prayer time. How can I not have a blessed life? How can I not come back to the right way that I was raised? Because I promise you, as parents and grandparents, that if you will let your prayers go up as a memorial before God, you will absolutely see the result in your family for generations to come. That's why people from all over, from all walks of life, would call Mom. She would pray, and things would happen. My oldest brother, Randy, had a severe case of epilepsy. He had seizures. And, the doctors were not the answer in our family. We didn't go to the doctor. Mom prayed for Randy, made some promises to God in her life. Randy was healed of epilepsy, never had a seizure since. Yeah. We were wild little Mohicans back in the day growing up, as you could tell from my other story. So my oldest brother Randy and the next brother down, Rob, they decided that they needed to kill the red ants. So they decided the best way to do it was to take a double-bitted axe and go chop those ants up. And Randy, if he's anything, he's a hard worker. For years, Randy would get busy working. He's 75 now. And when he still gets going, you'll see him. He gets that tongue out there and he just gets with it. Well, he was chopping ants back at a very young age with a double-bitted axe. And my other brother, Paul, came in and he decided he wanted to see what are they doing to all those ants? And he leans in there right when the axe comes up. Whack! What a double-bitted axe. He falls out screaming, blood's pouring down his face. They get Paul, they rush into the house. Mama, okay, kids, come in here. It's time to pray. And they begin to pray for Randy for Paul, and that thing sealed up, stopped bleeding instantly. Okay? That's the power of discovery. The process of finding God will do things that it's beyond anything that you can think or imagine. My dad went out of town looking for work. We lived in Oklahoma at the time. We were all in construction, most of our family, since Dad. And he said, now you've only got enough gas to go to church one time, and that's it. Well, they were having this revival series, and all the ladies would go pray every day. It was part of their deal back then. Every day the ladies would meet at noon for a prayer meeting for the revival services. That was the thing. But she didn't have any gas money. So what'd Mom do? She drove a week on empty, 15 miles a day. I saw it happen. The day that Dad flew in, we go to the airport. And I remember it was a big old prop plane back then. I was a kid. It was maybe 5 years old. Here comes this big plane. Oh, there's Dad. There's Daddy. Yeah. He gets out and he gets in the car. He's like, boy, this thing sure is empty. Mom said, yeah, it's close to empty. So he gets in and he starts it, and we start going down the road. We don't anymore get out on the main road, and that car goes chug. He said, we're running out of gas. Where did you drive this thing? I said, well, I did drive to church. She didn't say how many times. That car chugged and puffed and ran out of gas, and we coasted right into a gas station. These are the kind of things that happen Now, these are true stories, 100%. They're completely verifiable with all of my family members. So I'm almost done here. Musicians, if you're coming, now's your cue. I'm not going to hold you standing for a long time. That's not our style today. And I told Rick this story that 2 weeks ago on August the 24th, 10 years after Mom's passing, one of her lost children, who's been way out in the wind for most of his entire life, went out to the ranch on a particular day, got down on his knees in the bunkhouse, and began to pray and pour his heart out to God and to ask God to take away the chains that have kept him back. And God completely delivered him, gave him a brand new lease on life, completely turned his life over to God. 10 years after her passing, this prayer comes true. This promise that's in this book about my brother came true. Parents, never give up. Whether we see it with our own eyes or whether it's years down the road, if you will seek, this was Mom's secret, that if you will seek, you will find. You will discover the untold riches that God has for you and your family and those all around you. You know, each one in our family has kind of a unique gifting. Some's with music, some's with speaking, others with giving. And if there was ever one that was given me, it would be to get in the lives of men and help them get out of the mess they're in. Because trust me, I didn't always live a straight up life. No, Tim went way left, but thank God. And Jeanette, where are you today? Oh, there you are, right in the middle by our dad. Thanks to the great Lord God Almighty and a great wife who would stand by me and help me straighten up, I came around, and that's given me great compassion for guys who are messed up. If you remember back a few months, Ed Davis, that was my shooting instructor from California. He didn't believe there was a God when I met him out in California. But today, he's back in Fort Bragg, and every Sunday, he's down at the local Assembly of God. He's given his life completely to Jesus. Our superintendent, Daniel Casey, had been away from God for 15 years. Has a very prayerful, praying mother. Completely gave his life back to God. Because when I wake up in the morning, I'll read my Bible and I'll pray. But I ask God, God, who do you want me to talk to today? Where's he at, God? Because every day there's somebody in your life that needs something that you have, or there's somebody that you're going to meet that has something you need. And if you will seek, you'll discover it. Could we stand? If there's something in your life that you would like to turn over to God, there's not a better time than right now to let it go. And I'm not going to ask you to all come up to the front, but what